moved into the house almost a year ago. Back then, I thought I'd finally found peace, a quiet street, a quiet neighborhood, a quiet life. But peace is just the silence before you hear the truth. The first month was normal, boxes everywhere, new routines, trying to settle in. But little things started happening, small things, things you can explain away if you really want to. A spoon missing, a light left on, a door slightly open. I blame myself, stress, work, forgetfulness, anything except the possibility that someone else was in the house with me. By month 2, the noises started, soft shifting inside the walls, like wood settling, but slower, more deliberate, like someone was crawling through the house, trying not to be heard. I'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint scrape of movement behind the drywall. Sometimes it sounded like breathing, sometimes like whispering, sometimes like someone pressing their ear against the wall, listening to me. I told myself it was mice, or pipes, or the house adjusting, but deep down, I knew. By month 4, I started losing sleep. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone was standing in the hallway. I'd hear footsteps at 3 a.m., slow, careful, measured. I started locking every door inside the house, bedroom, bathroom, closets. It didn't make me feel safer, it just made me feel like I was locking something in. Around month 5, I noticed the food, not missing, rearranged, placed in patterns, stacked in ways I would never stack them, cans lined up by height, fruit sorted by color. Someone was touching my things. Someone was studying me. I bought cameras, every room except the bathroom and bedroom. I couldn't sleep with the red lights staring at me. A week later, I checked the footage, and that's when everything changed. At 3:14 a.m., the basement door opened, slowly, silently, and a man stepped out. He was thin, filthy, hair hanging over his face. He moved like he hadn't stood upright in years. He walked to the kitchen, ate from my fridge, drank from my milk carton. Then, he walked to my bedroom door, pressed his ear against it, and listened for almost an hour. Then he turned, walked back downstairs, opened a panel behind the water heater, and crawled inside the wall. I paused the video. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely breathe. This man, this stranger, had been living inside my walls for months, watching me, moving around me, breathing inches away from me. I called the police. They searched the crawl space, the attic, the basement, every inch of the walls. They found where he'd been sleeping, a hollowed-out space between the studs, blankets, food wrappers, a small lamp, and a notebook. Inside were pages and pages of writing, my name, my schedule, my habits, what time I showered, what time I slept, what time I talked in my sleep. And one line repeated over and over, "He doesn't know I'm here." But there was something else, a page near the back, a drawing, my bedroom, me sleeping, and a figure standing over me, watching. The police said he must have slipped out before they arrived, but I don't think he left, not really. Because things kept happening, small things, a whisper behind the wall, a shadow under the door, a cold breath on my neck when I slept. I moved out, left everything behind, didn't even look back. But last night, at my new apartment, I woke up to a sound, a soft, slow, rhythmic tapping coming from the closet door. I opened it. Nothing, just darkness. But on the inside of the closet wall, there was a message written in charcoal, fresh. "You moved, so I followed." And underneath it, a drawing of me, sleeping. He's still here, he never left, he never will. If you're still listening, lock your doors, check your walls, and maybe, just maybe, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because I think tonight, he's going to come out again. If you discovered someone had been living inside your walls for almost a year, what's the first thing you'd do? I didn't know the history of the house when I moved in, didn't know the previous tenant, didn't know why he left so suddenly, didn't know what he left behind. All I knew was that the rent was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but when you're desperate, you don't ask questions. You just sign the lease and pray the walls don't collapse. The first night, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, dragging, like someone was limping across the floor. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood, old nails, old problems. But the footsteps kept happening every night, always at the same time. 3:17 a.m. By week 2, the noises changed. It wasn't footsteps anymore. It was breathing, not through the vents, not outside, but inside the walls. Deep, wet, strained, like every inhale hurt. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to it. It sounded like someone trying not to die or trying not to be heard. I started sleeping with the lights on. Didn't help. The breathing got louder, closer, more desperate. By week 3, I started seeing things. Shadows moving under the door, a figure standing at the top of the stairs. A hand, pale, thin, sliding back into the darkness when I looked up too fast. I told myself I was tired, overworked, losing it, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The landlord told me one thing when I moved in. Don't open the room at the end of the hall. He said it casually, like it was nothing, like it wasn't the most suspicious thing a landlord could ever say. I ignored him for a while. But one night, after the breathing got so loud it felt like someone was inhaling right behind my ear, I snapped. I grabbed a flashlight and went upstairs. The hallway was freezing, my breath fogged in the air. The forbidden door was cracked open, just slightly, like someone had been watching me from the darkness, and slipped back inside when I stood up. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Rot, sweat, old clothes, old fear. The room was empty, except for a mattress on the floor and a pile of blankets in the corner. I stepped closer. The blankets moved. Not like something was crawling out, but like something was crawling deeper in, trying to hide, trying to disappear, trying to stay in the room. He wouldn't leave. I backed out and slammed the door. Didn't sleep that night, or the next. By week 5, I started finding things. A man's sock under my bed, a razor blade in the shower, a half-eaten sandwich in the closet. Someone was living in the house with me, someone who didn't want to be seen, someone who didn't want to leave. I set up cameras, every hallway, every room, even the staircase. But not the upstairs room. Something about that room felt wrong, like it didn't want to be watched. A week later, I checked the footage, and my blood ran cold. At 3:17 a.m., the upstairs door opened, slowly, silently. A man stepped out, tall, thin, skin stretched tight over his bones, hair hanging in greasy strands, eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't walk. He drifted, bare feet sliding across the floor. He went into my room, stood over me, watched me sleep for 43 minutes. Then he leaned down, put his mouth next to my ear, and whispered something. The audio didn't pick it up, but I felt it. I woke up that night with a cold breath on my neck. He left my room, went back upstairs, closed the door, and didn't come out again. I called the landlord, told him everything. He sighed, like he'd been waiting for this call. "He won't hurt you," he said. "He just doesn't know he's dead." I hung up, packed my things, left the house. But last night, in my new apartment, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of breathing. Deep, wet, strained. And when I looked at the corner of my room, I saw the blankets, the same pile from the old house, slowly shifting. He found me, and he brought the room with him. If you're still listening, Make sure you're subscribed, because if he moves again, you'll want to know where he goes next. If you heard footsteps in a room that's supposed to be empty, would you open the door or leave the house? When my friend Mark offered to let me stay in his basement, I thought he was saving my life. I'd lost my job, lost my apartment, lost everything except a suitcase and a phone charger. "Stay as long as you need," he said, but there was something in his voice, something tight, something strained, like he wasn't offering, like he was warning me. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, a single hanging bulb that flickered when you breathed too hard. But it was a place to sleep, a place to start over, a place to feel safe. That first night, I heard footsteps upstairs, normal, Mark moving around, but then I heard footsteps behind me, in the basement, slow, bare, dragging. I turned around, nothing, just shadows stretching across the concrete. I told myself it was the house settling, old pipes, old wood, old fears. But the footsteps kept happening, every night, always behind me, always, just out of sight. Sure were. By week 2, I started noticing things. My suitcase moved, my clothes rearranged, my phone unplugged in the middle of the night. I asked Mark if he'd been downstairs. He froze, just for a second, then forced a smile. "No, I don't go down there anymore." Anymore. That word stuck with me. By week 3, I started hearing breathing, not upstairs, not through the vents, but under the stairs, deep, wet, shaky, like someone was trying not to cry. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the staircase, watching the darkness shift. Sometimes I saw a hand, sometimes a face, sometimes nothing at all, which was somehow worse. One night, I finally asked Mark what happened in the basement. He didn't answer at first, just stared at the floor. Then he said, "My brother used to live down there." "Used to? What happened to him?" I asked. Mark swallowed hard. He wouldn't leave. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. He just walked away. That night, I woke up to the sound of someone whispering my name, not from upstairs, not from the stairs, but from the far corner of the basement, the darkest part, the part the light never reached. I sat up slowly. The whispering stopped, but the breathing didn't. It got louder, closer, right behind me. I turned around, nothing, just cold air and shadows. I barely slept. By week 4, I couldn't take it anymore. I set up my phone to record while I slept, just to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. The next morning, I watched the footage, and my blood turned to ice. At 3:11 a.m., a figure crawled out from under the stairs, not walked, crawled, on hands and knees, slow, shaking, like every movement hurt. He was thin, filthy, hair hanging over his face, skin stretched tight, over bones. He crawled to my bed, stood up, leaned over me, and whispered my name. Then he reached out and touched my face. I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't wake up. He crawled back under the stairs and disappeared. I ran upstairs, shaking, screaming, demanding answers. Mark didn't look surprised, not even a little. He just sat down, put his head in his hands, and said, "He won't hurt you. He just doesn't understand he's dead." I left that morning, didn't pack, didn't say goodbye, didn't look back. But last night, in my new place, I woke up to the sound of something crawling, slow, wet, shaking. I looked at the closet door. It was open, just a crack. And from the darkness, I heard him whisper my name. He followed me. He always follows. If you found out someone was crawling out from under your stairs every night, would you stay, confront it, or run? It started with my coworker, Jenna. She came into the office one morning, smiling too wide. Not a normal smile, not a tired smile, a smile that looked practiced. She said, "Good morning," in a voice that didn't sound like hers. Too soft, too careful, like she was trying to remember how Jenna used to talk. I laughed it off, thought she was sick, thought she was tired, thought nothing of it. Until she called me by a nickname I never told her, a nickname only one person ever used, someone she'd never met. I froze. "How did you know that?" She blinked, tilted her head, smiled that same too wide smile. "I pay attention. I didn't sleep that night." The next day my boss acted strange. He stood too close, watched me too long, repeated my sentences back to me like he was testing how they sounded. At lunch, he sat across from me and said, "I'm learning you." I dropped my fork, stared at him. "What?" He smiled. The same smile Jenna had, the same smile that didn't belong to either of them. "You'll understand soon." I left work early, heart pounding, hands shaking. When I got home, my neighbor was waiting in the hallway, a quiet guy, never talked much, but today he talked a lot, too much. He asked how my day was, asked if I slept well, asked if I was adjusting. Adjusting to what? He smiled, the same smile, the same wrong smile. "You'll see." I slammed my door, locked it, double-locked it, sat on the floor trying to breathe. Something was happening, something I couldn't explain, something I didn't want to understand. That night, I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, steady, too many, like multiple people walking in perfect sync. Then whispering, soft, practiced, repeating my name over and over. "Where?" I looked through the peephole. My coworkers were standing outside my door. Jenna, my boss, my neighbor, all smiling, all staring, all whispering my name. I backed away slowly, heart racing, breath shaking. They stayed there for hours, just whispering, just smiling, just waiting. Around 3:12 a.m., the whispering stopped. The hallway went silent. I thought they left until I heard something slide under the door. A note. I picked it up with shaking hands, opened it slowly. Inside, written in neat handwriting. "We're almost ready." I didn't sleep, didn't move, didn't blink. The next morning, I went to work. Or tried to. Everyone was different. Everyone had the same smile, the same voice, the same way of tilting their head when they looked at me. It was like they were all learning from the same script. I ran, left the building, didn't look back. When I got home, my apartment door was open, just a crack. Inside, everything was moved, not stolen, not trashed, just rearranged, like someone was trying to understand how I lived. On my bed was a note. "We're almost you." I stumbled back, heart pounding, hands shaking. Then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, steady, practiced. I turned around. My neighbor stood in the doorway, smiling, eyes wide, voice calm. "We're replacing the world, one person at a time." He stepped closer. "You're next." I ran, didn't pack, didn't look back. But tonight, in the motel room miles away, I heard footsteps outside my door, slow, steady, familiar, and a voice whispered through the crack, "We learned you. Now we'll replace you." If everyone around you slowly started acting the same, smiling the same, talking the same, when would you realize they weren't themselves anymore? I first noticed him 6 months ago, not because he did anything strange, but because he didn't do anything at all. He just watched me, At the grocery store, at the bus stop, outside my job, always standing just far enough away to pretend it was coincidence. But his eyes never left me. Not once. I told myself I was imagining it, that he was just another stranger in a world full of strangers, but deep down, I knew he wasn't. The first note showed up on my car windshield. A single sentence. "You don't have to be afraid, you're mine." I threw it away, tried to forget it, but the next day there was another, then another, then another. Each one more personal, more detailed, more certain. He knew where I lived, where I worked, what time I showered, what time I slept, what time I talked in my sleep. By month 2, I started hearing things at night, footsteps outside my window, breathing through the vents, a soft tapping on the glass, like someone tracing the outline of my face with their finger. I called the police. They checked the property, found nothing, told me it was probably a misunderstanding. But I knew better. One night, I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door opening, slow, careful, like someone didn't want to wake me. I froze, held my breath, listened. Footsteps, soft, bare, moving toward my bed. I reached for my phone, but before I could grab it, a voice whispered in the dark, low, shaking, excited. "You don't have to pretend to sleep. I know you're awake." I shot up, heart pounding, turned on the lamp. The room was empty. The door was closed. But on my pillow was a note. "You look beautiful when you're scared." I moved out the next morning, didn't pack, didn't clean, didn't tell anyone where I was going. But he found me. Of course he did. People like him always do. The first night in my new place, I heard humming, a soft, familiar tune coming from the closet. I opened it slowly, nothing, just darkness. But on the floor, another note. "You can move again if you want. I'll always follow." I started sleeping with the lights on. Didn't help. The humming got louder, closer, more confident. One night I woke up to the feeling of someone brushing my hair behind my ear, gentle, loving, possessive. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't scream. And he whispered, "You belong to me, you always have." I turned on the light. No one was there, but the window was open, curtains blowing in the cold night air. And on the glass, a handprint, fresh, pressed hard, like he wanted me to know he'd been inches away. If you're still listening, stay close, stay aware, and maybe stick around the channel, because if he comes back, you'll want to hear what he does next. If someone whispered in your room at night and insisted you belonged to them, what would you do? I used to think being unnoticed was a curse. I used to think blending in made me invisible, forgettable, replaceable. But then he noticed me, and I learned something worse. Being seen by the wrong person can ruin your life. It started small, a stranger at the bus stop. A man I'd never seen before. He stood too close, stared too long, smiled too wide. I moved away. He moved with me. I told myself it was coincidence, bad timing, a weird guy on a weird day. But the next morning he was there again, same spot, same stare, same smile. And this time he was wearing the same jacket as me. I laughed it off, told myself I was being dramatic. People wear similar clothes all the time. But the next day, he wore the same shoes, the same backpack, the same haircut. He didn't just notice me, he studied me. By week 2, he followed me everywhere, not close enough to touch me, not far enough to lose me, just perfectly behind, matching my pace, matching my posture, matching my breathing. One night I turned around and snapped, "What do you want?" He smiled, a slow, trembling smile, and said, "I want to understand you." I walked away, fast, Didn't look back. Didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found a note taped to my door. Neat handwriting. Precise. Obsessive. You don't appreciate your life, so I will. I called the police. They told me, unless he threatened me, there was nothing they could do. He didn't threaten me, not directly. He didn't need to. Because the next day, he was wearing my exact outfit, down to the stains, down to the frayed threads, down to the way I rolled my sleeves. He didn't just want to understand me, he wanted to be me. I changed my route to work. He changed his. I changed my schedule. He changed his. I changed my locks. He didn't need to. Because one night, I woke up to the sound of someone breathing in my room. Slow, steady, practiced. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't open my eyes. But I felt him, standing over me, watching me, studying me. When I finally turned on the light, he was gone, but my closet door was open, and inside, my clothes were missing. The next morning, I found another note. You don't deserve your life, but I do. I moved out, left everything behind. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. But he found me. Of course he did. People like him always do. Last night, I came home to find my door unlocked, lights on, shower running. I grabbed a knife, walked slowly down the hall, heart pounding, hands shaking. The bathroom door was open, steam pouring out, and inside, he was standing in front of the mirror, wearing my clothes, my shoes, my watch, and he was practicing my smile. He turned to me slowly, tilted his head, and whispered, "I'm almost perfect." I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop, didn't breathe. But tonight, as I record this, I can hear footsteps outside my door. Slow, steady, practiced, and a voice whispering through the crack, "Let me in, I'm you." If you're still listening, stay close, because if he gets inside, you'll want to know what he becomes next. If someone started copying your clothes, your habits, and your life, when would you realize they weren't just watching you? They were replacing you. I moved into the apartment because it was cheap. That's it. No big story, no dramatic reason, just a price I could afford, and a landlord who didn't ask questions. The building was old, thin walls, creaky floors, a smell of dust that never went away, but it was quiet. Too quiet. My neighbor across the hall was the only person I ever saw, a man in his late 40s, thin, pale, always wearing the same gray hoodie. He never spoke, never smiled, never blinked long enough for me to feel comfortable. But he watched. Always watched. The first time I noticed something was wrong was the day I dropped my keys. They slipped from my hand, hit the floor, and before I could pick them up, his door opened. Just an inch, just enough for me to see his eye staring through the crack. He didn't say anything, didn't offer to help, just watched me pick up my keys. I laughed it off, told myself he was weird, not dangerous. But the next morning I found a USB drive taped to my door. No note, no explanation, just a small black drive with a single word scratched into the plastic. Watch. I should have thrown it away, should have ignored it. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I plugged it into my laptop. There was one video file, no title, just a timestamp. I clicked it. The video was of me, sleeping. The angle was from above, like the camera was mounted on the ceiling, but there was no camera in my room. I checked. I tore the place apart. Nothing. I went to the landlord. He shrugged, said the previous tenant was paranoid and installed cameras everywhere, said he removed them, said I was safe. But that night, I found another USB taped to my door. This one had multiple videos. Me cooking, me showering, me changing clothes, me talking on the phone. All from angle that shouldn't exist. I unplugged every outlet, covered every vent, checked every corner, still found nothing. But the videos kept coming, every day, every night. More angles, more footage. More of my life, recorded without my knowledge. I confronted the neighbor, banged on his door, yelled, demanded answers. He didn't open the door, but he spoke. His voice was soft, calm, too calm. You live wrong. I froze. What? You waste your life. You don't appreciate it. So I'm documenting it, so you can see what you're throwing away. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, hands shaking. He continued, still calm, still soft. I'm helping you. You don't see yourself clearly, but I do. I called the police. They checked his apartment, found nothing. No cameras, no monitors, no recording equipment. But they found something else, a wall covered in photos of me sleeping, eating, laughing, crying. Hundreds of photos, maybe thousands. The police told me to stay somewhere else for the night. I did. But when I returned the next morning, my door was open, just a crack. Inside, everything was gone, not stolen, removed, neatly, carefully, like someone had packed up my entire life. On the floor was a single USB drive, labeled Final. I plugged it in. There was one video, just one. It was me, sleeping, but this time, the camera wasn't above me. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't distant. It was inches from my face. And behind the camera, I heard breathing, slow, steady, familiar. Then a voice whispered, "You don't need your things anymore. You have me." I ran, didn't pack, didn't look back. But last night, in my new apartment, I found a USB drive, taped to my door. No label, no note, just one word scratched into the plastic. Closer. And inside the video, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't cooking, I wasn't showering. I was standing at my window, looking out, looking terrified, looking for him. And behind me, in the reflection, he was smiling. He's still recording, and he's closer than ever. If you found videos of yourself taken from impossible angles, how long before you realized the person filming wasn't outside your home, but inside it? I met him on a cold night in November. I was walking home from work, tired, hungry, ready to collapse into bed. Nothing unusual, nothing strange, just another night. Until he stepped out of the alley, thin, pale, eyes wide like he hadn't slept in years. He looked at me like he'd been waiting. "Finally," he whispered, "you came back." I stepped around him, didn't make eye contact, didn't respond, just kept walking. But he followed, slow, steady, like he knew exactly where I was going. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, "not after what happened." I turned around. "What are you talking about?" He smiled, a sad, broken smile. "You died, years ago." I walked faster, didn't look back, didn't want to hear another word. But his voice carried down the street, soft, certain. "I missed you. I didn't sleep that night." The next morning, he was outside my building, standing perfectly still, hands folded, eyes locked on my window. When I stepped outside, he whispered, "You look the same, just like the day you left." I told him to leave me alone. He nodded, smiled, and said, "I can't. You're not supposed to be here." I walked away, heart pounding, hands shaking. By day 3, he knew my routine. He waited for me every morning, every night, always watching, always whispering. "You don't remember, do you? You don't know what happened. You don't know why you're still here." I called the police. They talked to him. He told them I was his lost one, told them I didn't know I was gone, told them he was helping me move on. They let him go. That night, I found a note under my door, neat handwriting, precise, obsessive. You died on a Thursday. I remember the sound. I tore it up, threw it away, tried to forget it. But the next morning, there was another. You don't belong in that body anymore. I stopped leaving my apartment, stopped sleeping, stopped eating, just sat there listening for footsteps in the hallway. Around 2:14 a.m., I heard knocking, soft, gentle, 3 taps. I looked through the peephole. He was there, smiling, eyes full of tears. "Please," he whispered, "let me help you remember." I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe. He pressed his forehead against the door, voice shaking. "You're stuck. You're lost. You're not supposed to be here." I backed away slowly, heart pounding, hands trembling. He slid something under the door, a photograph, old, faded. It was me, lying on the ground, eyes closed, blood pooling around my head. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, "This is when you left me." I dropped the photo, stumbled back, tried to breathe, tried to think. I called the police again. They searched the building, searched the alley, searched everywhere. He was gone. For a week, I didn't see him, didn't hear him, didn't find any notes. I started to relax, started to believe it was over. Then last night, I woke up to the sound of someone breathing next to my bed. Slow, steady, familiar. I turned on the lamp. No one there, but the window was open, curtains blowing in the cold night air. And on the glass, a handprint, fresh, pressed hard. Below it, written in the condensation, "You died on a Thursday. Tonight is Thursday." I ran. Didn't pack, didn't look back. But as I sit here in a motel room miles away, there's a knock at the door, soft, gentle, 3 taps, and a voice whispering through the crack, "You can't run from death. You already met me once. If someone insisted you died years ago and had proof, how long before you started to doubt yourself?" When my friend Tyler asked me to house sit for a week, I didn't think twice. He'd helped me through some rough times, letting me crash on his couch, feeding me when I couldn't afford groceries, being there when no one else was. So when he said, "Just keep an eye on the place, don't go in the basement," I laughed, thought he was joking. He wasn't. The first night was quiet, too quiet. Tyler lived in the middle of nowhere. No neighbors, no traffic, no noise except the wind scraping against the siding. Around 2 a.m., I heard something, a thud, from the basement. I froze, listened, another thud, then a dragging sound, slow, heavy, like something being pulled across concrete. I told myself it was the furnace, old pipes, old house, old imagination. But the dragging kept going, back and forth, like something pacing. I texted Tyler, "Hey man, something's moving downstairs." He replied instantly, "Do not open the basement door." That was the first time I felt real fear, not because of the noise, but because of how fast he answered. The next day, I tried to ignore it, watched TV, cleaned up, fed his dog, but the dog refused to go near the basement door. He'd stand at the edge of the hallway, growling low, tail tucked between his legs. That night, the noises got worse, not just dragging, not just thuds, but whispering. Wet, broken, like someone trying to speak through a mouth full of blood. I pressed my ear to the basement door. The whispering stopped. Then something pressed back, a hand, cold, flat, right against the other side of the wood. I stumbled away, heart pounding, texted Tyler again. "What is in your basement?" He didn't answer. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. The dragging, the whispering, the thuds, the feeling that something was waiting for me to slip. I grabbed a chair, wedged it under the basement doorknob, sat on the couch with every light on, tried to stay awake. Around 3:12 a.m., the chair moved, not fell, not slid, moved. Like someone was pushing the door from the other side, slow, steady, deliberate. The wood creaked, the hinges groaned, the door pushed open an inch, then another, then another. I ran, locked myself in the bathroom, sat on the floor shaking until sunrise. When Tyler finally called, his voice was shaking. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have told you." "Told me what?" "My brother, he didn't die in the accident." "Not really." Silence. Then, "He came back wrong. He lives in the basement now. He listens. He learns. He remembers voices." I stared at the basement door. It was open, wide open. "Tyler," I whispered. "I think he got out." Tyler didn't speak for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget, something that made my blood turn to ice. "If he heard you, if he touched the door while you were there, he knows your scent now." I left the house that morning, didn't pack, didn't clean, didn't look back. But last night, in my own home, I heard dragging, slow, heavy, coming from under my bed, and a voice whispered my name, wet, broken, familiar. He found me, and he remembers. If you heard something dragging across your basement floor at 3 a.m., would you check it, call someone, or leave the house? I didn't notice the first time it happened. Most people wouldn't. It was small, barely anything, just a moment that felt off. I was brushing my teeth when I saw it. My reflection blinked a half-second too late. Not much, just enough to make my stomach twist. I leaned closer, stared at myself, waited. Nothing, just me, just tired eyes and a long day. I laughed it off, told myself I needed sleep. But the next morning, something else was wrong. My phone had photos I didn't take. Pictures of me sleeping, pictures of me cooking, pictures of me leaving the apartment, all taken from angles I couldn't reach. I checked the locks, checked the windows, checked everything. Nothing broken, nothing disturbed, nothing missing. Except, I didn't remember cooking last night. I told myself I was stressed, overworked, losing track of time. But then my coworker said something that made my blood run cold. "You were weird yesterday." I frowned. I wasn't here yesterday. She stared at me, confused, uncomfortable. "You sat right next to me. You talked to me. You told me you were fine." I felt sick. That night I set up my phone to record while I slept, just to prove I wasn't losing my mind. The next morning, I watched the footage, and my heart stopped. At 2:13 a.m., I sat up, not woke up, sat up, eyes open, expression blank. I stood, walked to the mirror, stared at myself for a long time, too long. Then I smiled, a smile I've never made in my life, wide, wrong, empty. And in the reflection, my mouth didn't move. Only the reflection smiled. I slammed the laptop shut, hands shaking, heart pounding. I didn't sleep the next night, didn't blink, didn't move, just sat there watching the mirror. Around 3:04 a.m., I saw something. A shadow behind me, not mine, not shaped like me, something taller, thinner, wrong. I spun around, nothing there, but in the mirror, it was still standing behind me.